Shalom, giving all honor, all praise, and all glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rechak, Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone that rule well. And as always, peace, blessings, and salutations to the hopeful elect tabernacle of David that are scattered abroad across the four winds of the earth. Now, I'm not going to keep harping on this dude, because, he's just another casualty in this thing. I'm pretty sure the Christians are jumping up and down for joy to see somebody abandon the ministry to, return back to their own vomit. But what I do want to stress in this lesson is what you come to learn and understand in this thing of ours is this thing is not about temporary rewards and self-interest. It's about loyalty and commitment. We're not in this ministry just to get carnal temporary things out of it. And then once things not go our way, we abandon it. The moment we suffer some type of humiliation, we just skedaddle, we're gone. Let this be an example that certain dudes were never really sincere. They were not committed. This thing was just something to be a part of and to use for the moment. And that's what set this apart, because in a street gang, which this dude, he still chooses to affiliate himself with, that explains the type of character you're dealing with. I'm not going to be down. No, I'm not going to be no longer down with, the Israelite thing, because it's just a movement. It's just another faction or whatever. But you'll still rep a street gang that has no honor. There's no integrity in the street gangs. There's no, moral codes and none of that. All of righteous qualities that you develop coming into this truth, being a new creature in Yahushai, you damn sure not going to get that in no street gang. But he'll rather actually stay committed to that than the ministry. So, like I said, this thing of ours is not for, selfish intent. This is not for self-interest. This is not for you to come in and try to, use it for your own personal gain, to climb up some kind of ranking order, to receive some type of carnal or temporary crown, if you will. All right. Like Paul said, they do this for a carnal, a temporary crown, but he did it for eternal life. All right. And this dude, he got his temporary crown snatched because he lost all credibility. And now, because he got his respect tarnished, now he's offended and he won't know parts of this whole thing. Now this thing is toxic. And consider this a part 2 to the last lesson that I did. And I'm sure that after this, I'm not going to even be thinking about this dude anymore. But this is what happens when guys are in this thing under, particular conditions. Meaning I'll come and serve the Lord, but under these conditions. If I can, rise up to the top and get all this authority and respect and acclaim, if I can get all this money, if I can get a flattering title, if I could get all these things, it's like a female who'll only get with a man if she sees her own self gain and benefit from it. She's not looking to join or get into a union or a marriage, and be loyal and committed, to be a righteous helpmate and do the things that are pleasing for her husband, unconditionally. No, she's gonna have conditions. All right. And that's the attitude you don't want to have coming into this thing. Because hey, when you delve deep, the Lord don't owe us a damn thing. We actually owe him. Now let's get that real quick. Let's go to Luke. I want to go to this parable that Yahweh Shai taught. Let me see. I'm gonna start at verse 5, and we're gonna read it starting. I'm gonna read it in the NLT. It says, "The Lord answered, if you had faith even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, may you be uprooted and thrown into the sea, and it would obey you. When a servant comes in from plowing or taking care of sheep, does his master say, come in and eat with me? No, he says, prepare my meal, put on your apron, and serve me while I eat. Then you can eat later." So basically, you got a job to do. I hired you to do something. You do that. All right. That doesn't mean that you can come and have a free meal and sit down with me. Go finish your job first. And then after you're done fulfilling your task, then you can sit down and eat. All right. So right now, while the Lord is away and we're under grace and we have the earnest of the Spirit, we utilize that towards the ministry. He said to occupy till I come. All right. He gave us talents, and we're not to put it in a napkin. We're not to use it for our own selfish reasons or benefits. All right. You come into this thing, we're selfless. We're to prefer each other. Okay. Matter of fact, let me get a quick precept. Let's go to Philippians 2. Yeah, this is Philippians 2. And I'll start at 1. The point is in verse 4. It says, "Is there any encouragement from belonging to Hamashiach? Any comfort from his love? Any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose." All right. So, we work together because we all are, we all have the same destination. All right. We all have a one-track mind when it comes to this truth and the destination that we're trying to get to. And that's what it means to keep your eyes single. All right. So we have we're working together, as a collective. All right. With one mind and purpose, which is to make it into that ship, to receive salvation, to gain eternal life, to inherit the kingdom of the Most High and rule over these nations. That's the mind, that the one track mind that we have, being kingdom minded. Or not temporarily minded, temporary minded where, I'm just in this thing just for, under certain conditions. And, once those conditions leave, I'm no longer obligated. I'm going to just do me now, right? It says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. But somebody that's not committed and only in this thing for selfish reasons, that's the characteristic they will have. It's only for so long you can, act and portray yourself. You're doing this thing under pretense before it all gets scoped out and found out. Okay. And it says, verse 5, you must have the same attitude that Yahweh Shai had. All right. And the Lord, he showed plenty of examples of, his commitment to feeding the sheep and caring for them. He didn't treat it like it was a chore. He did it willingly. He didn't do it for hire, for filthy lucre. The Lord didn't even have a place to rest his head. So just think about that. So let me go back. And I'm going to read verse 8 again. It says, no, he says, prepare my meal and put on your apron and serve me while I eat. Then you can eat later. And does the master thank the servant for doing what he was told to do? Of course not. In the same way, when you obey me, you should say, we are unworthy servants who have simply done our duty. All right. And even, even until the end. All right. If we have to be here for, decades, at the end of it all, you still did what you were supposed to do. Okay. So I want to look up this word for duty. Let me see. Let me do this. Go to the KJV, go down. Yep. So you look up that word duty in the Greek, and the word is ophilo. And it says, probably from the base of G3786, to owe. To owe. Oh, have an obligation to pay or repay something, especially money, in return for something received. What did we receive? Because as a nation, according to the old covenant, we supposed to be through. But guess who came down and became our redeemer when his blood was shed? So who do we owe now? The same man that told us to occupy till he come. The man who said to feed the sheep. The one who said to go into the highways and lanes and streets of the city. The one who told the parable that blessed is man that when the Lord shall come shall find doing. Meaning what? Watching. Well, because, some condition isn't met, or, some humiliation, some tribulation or offense arise. You did something wicked, and misrepresented your Savior in the ministry itself. and you get reprimanded, now all of a sudden you don't owe the Lord nothing. You can go and, do as you please now. You don't have to, come up under nothing. You don't have to, but you was always this way. You never really wanted order, you know? So this is the attitude to have in this thing, and if you have this mentality, under any circumstance, you're still going to continue to fulfill your task. Fuck your feelings, fuck your emotions. It says figuratively to be under obligation. All right. Ought, must, should, morally. All right. It says to fail in duty, be of, be bound, be guilty, indebted. To owe money, be in debt for. That which is due, the debt. So we owe the Lord. So it doesn't even cross our mind. That's not even, that's out of the question to, I'm no longer gonna be responsible. I'm not gonna continue to do which was in my duty to do, because I'm offended, and there are certain conditions that that I agreed to as to why I entered into the ministry. But because those conditions are no longer there, I'm just gonna bounce out and move on my own and do me, whatever is pleasing in my sight. Very lofty, arrogant, proud. So, yeah, man, that's the very definition of a hireling. Like when you hire somebody for a day job, which there's nothing wrong with that per se when it comes to just work. You hire that person just for the day. They're gonna come in. They're gonna put in the number of hours that you set for them to work. Then they're gonna be expecting to get paid, at the end of their shift. Well, not in this society. It's wicked. They'll, you gotta wait, bi-weekly. You get paid bi-weekly. So, you'll work a whole week, but still gotta wait till the following week before you get paid. When the law says that, you're not supposed to hold the wages of a servant, overnight. You pay them at the end of their work. So a hireling, they come with the expectation of being paid that night. In this thing of ours, we actually are in debt. The Lord already gave us money, and that's basically this word, this truth. And now we're supposed to use that money until the Lord comes back and promote us. When we get changed, when the Lord comes back and he establishes the new covenant in us, that's the promotion. But selfish dudes don't see it like that, because they looking to get out of it what they want now. And that was and that's the thing. Dude got what he wanted out of this thing as long as it lasted. And now that he no longer can use it anymore, he's gone. That's the true essence of a hireling. And there's imminent danger that's coming. We know that the ministry eventually is going to be under attack. You got what you wanted, and then you skedaddle because you found your reason why you no longer want to, continue to suffer for the Lord's sake, because you was never sincere to begin with. So let's go from there, right? Because I'm talking about, guys with that selfish mentality. You want a temporary reward, and you doing this thing out of self interest. Well, guess what? The chief priests, they handed over the Lord because of their own selfish interests. Okay, they wanted to be seen as the big dogs in Israel, and because Yahweh Shai, was he was being followed. A lot of people were converting and following him, and it threatened these guys' position. You know, they were no longer being seen as the big dogs. So they had to do something to get rid of our Lord. So this is Mark 15 and 9, and this is in the NIV. All right. And this is Pontius Pilate, speaking with the crowd. All right. And it says, I'll start at 7. Mark 15 and 7, it says, a man called Barabbas was in prison with the insurrectionists who had committed murder in an uprising. The crowd came up and asked Pilate to do for them what he usually did. Do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews? Asked Pilate. Knowing it was out of self-interest that the chief priests had handed Yahushua over to him. It was out of self-interest. They wanted to look good. Yahushua, he was like he was like a reminder to those wicked souls of how to really walk, and because they wasn't walking like Yahushua did. Yahushua was the embodiment of the word. These guys, they were just phonies and hypocrites. They was putting off a facade, and they had the appearance of righteous men. So Yahushua, being the threat that he was, they had to do something to get rid of him. So they did it out of selfish reasons. Okay, selfish interests, self-interest. So that's the same attitude of an hireling. All right. So let's go to that. Let's go to John. John 10 and starting at 12. And it says, a hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him, and he isn't their shepherd. And that dude, he never was a shepherd. He didn't know how to lead those men. That's why you saw all of the gimmicks. Dudes, showing up to camp with guns on their hip. He was a terrible leader because he himself couldn't be led. If you don't know how to be a servant, a humble servant, a student, if you don't know how to be led, how in the hell could you lead? He was definitely not a good example at all. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. And he knows that, danger is coming down the pike. We all going to be persecuted eventually. He's trying to get out of Dodge now. And whether he got approached and he took a deal, because he said that he's coming with a different representation of the theology. So who knows what he's going to start teaching now? The only thing that'll get you to do something like that is a bag. Scriptures talk about taking a gift, which pervert the words of justice or judgment. It tells you that in Apocrypha. Let's go to Sirach 20. Yeah, Sirach 20 and 29, and it says, presents and gifts blind the eyes of the wise and stop up his mouth that he cannot prove. And the law speaks against taking a gift. So who knows, him being this Hebrew character that he played for a while, once the support left because, he got exposed and he lost respect and credibility, that money, I'm pretty sure, started to dry up. So there's nothing in it for him anymore. So hop onto a new wave, a new grift, or, maybe take a bag since I ain't got nothing else to show for. And in the process, I'm going to trash, the the ministry that I was once a part of, Yeah, man. Just like a woman that'll abandon her marriage and leave a guy because, things stop going her way. He might have told her about herself or where she's lacking or some wickedness that she's done, and she say, you know what? I don't need this no more. Even though she was taken care of, she was given everything that she needed to fulfill the duties of a wife, but all she was thinking about was herself the whole time, and found an excuse to leave. Well, that was a toxic relationship. My marriage was toxic. Yeah, because you wasn't committed. You wasn't loyal. So it's easy for you to step away. And the Lord isn't looking for such individuals to represent Him. All right, He's looking for faithful. That's why Paul said, "Commit thou unto faithful men who would teach others also." All right. Yahushua said, "You have not chosen me, but I have chosen you and ordained you that you should go and bring forth fruit, and fruit that will remain." We know what it means to remain. But a hireling is not going to remain. He's going to leave when there's danger, as long as he got paid. All right. It says the hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money. The super chats, the Patreons, the GoFundMe's. So you can go and trick off on these bras, these 304s. So you can drive your little Hellcat, get on on camera and show off your little outfits, little clothing brand that you made off of your little moniker. Yeah, man. Because he's only working for the money. They stole our cameras, so hey, I'm gonna need y'all to I'm gonna need y'all to hit up our GoFundMe, and this is our monetary goal. Instead of just, well, fuck it, we got smartphones, we can just use our phone until we, get our money back up and replace our equipment. Niggas is in this thing because it's another hustle. Going back to Malachi, they divine for reward. Like Balaam. Was it Jude as well as Peter? No, I think it was Jude. He spoke about the reward of Balaam. And a lot of these guys with this mentality, that's exactly that's the category that they fall into. Because Balaam, he was being hired to go and curse Israel. And he actually was in a pursuit to do that. But the Most High ended up putting him in a trance and basically taught him what he was going to go out and really say. And he flipped that curse into a blessing, But Balaam, he did it out of, his self-interest. He wanted that reward from Balak. So it's the same thing. It says, and doesn't really care about the sheep, because if you really cared about the sheep, you would be loyal, you would stay committed. Under no condition would you abandon the ministry. All right. Not because you're offended, not because your butt hurt, not because you can't get any more money out of this thing of ours. That means you really never cared. It was all about you the whole time. It says, I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me. Just as my Father knows me and I know the Father, so I sacrifice my life for the sheep. But not these niggas. Okay. So let me go over to 1 Peter. This is 1 Peter 5. And I'm going to start at 1. And this is in the NLT. And it says, and now a word to you who are elders in the church. I too am an elder and a witness to the sufferings of Yahushua and Mashiach. And I too will share in his glory when he is revealed to the whole world. As a fellow elder, I appeal to you. Care for the flock that the Most High has entrusted to you. Watch over it willingly, not grudgingly. Like I said, you're only doing it under certain conditions. And if, you feel like you're crossed or something isn't being met, you're done. I'm walking off the job. Not for you, Slakia, not for what you will get out of it. Let me read that again. It says, care for the flock that the Most High has entrusted to you. Watch over it willingly, not grudgingly, not for what you will get out of it. And that's a lot of these dudes. Okay. They only did it just for what they can get out of this whole thing. They made merchandise off of Jake. All right. And now that he no longer have access, he can get it elsewhere. Still trying to, carry the knowledge that he gained, which at this point, it is like the mafia, man. The Lord gave you this and then you finna go and run with it instead of do what he told you to do with it. Hey, man, you a dead man walking. That's why going back to Hebrews 10, the only thing to look for is to that fiery judgment that's going to come from the Lord. Because you didn't trodden down, the blood. You counted that sacrifice as a light thing. It says, but because you are eager to serve the Most High. So, that right there, man. And this is a Peter speaking here. Okay. And this was instructed, to those who have the oversight. If you're in a leadership position, you have an oversight. Okay. But you got these leaders, that's they only in this thing for their own selfish reasons, man. And eventually it will show. It says, don't lord it over the people assigned to your care, but lead them by your own good example. And when the great shepherd appears, you will receive a crown of never-ending glory and honor. All right, and not the temporary crown. All right, because a hireling, that's exactly what he does it for. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 9. They do it for that corruptible crown, to be liked, to be liked on this side. Having the appeal of a celebrity on this side. Come on, man, that's a corruptible crown. 1 Corinthians 9. Where is it at? First Corinthians 9. Matter of fact, let me go up some, because he even says something in this chapter that actually cuts this mentality, right? This is 1 Corinthians 9, and not that dude cared, because he never respected the writings of Paul anyway. 1 Corinthians 9, and I'm gonna start at 14. It says, "In the same way, the Lord ordered that those who preach the good news should be supported by those who benefit from it." All right. Which, yeah, I mean, you doing this work, and you being a good example, and you being diligent, and you constantly feeding brothers and sisters, with this with the spiritual jewels, then yeah, there's nothing wrong with receiving support and aid from them. Okay, and Paul wasn't just living off of that alone. He even had an occupation as a tent maker. He actually worked, and when he needed to, when he was on his travels, he would receive support. So there's nothing wrong with that. But when you get in this thing and you make it into a hustle, you got all these avenues going off of the ministry for monetary gain. That's something completely different. Verse 15, it says, "Yet I have never used any of these rights, and I am not writing this to suggest that I want to start now. In fact, I would rather die than to lose my right to boast about preaching without charge." It's not about the money. I'm not a hireling. Yet preaching the good news is not something I can boast about. I am compelled by the Most High to do it. How terrible for me if I didn't preach the good news. This is the mind of an unprofitable servant. Apostle Paul, it says, if I were doing this on my own initiative, I would deserve payment. But I have no choice, for the Most High has given me this sacred trust. What then is my pay? It is the opportunity to preach the good news without charging anyone. That's why I never demand my rights when I preach the good news. Okay. Let me jump down real quick. And this is verse 23. It says, "I do everything to spread the good news and share in its blessings. Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away." Especially here in Babylon, all those MVP trophies, all those rings, all those Heismans. That shit is going to melt in the lake of fire, man. We're not going to be talking about none of that in the kingdom of heaven. It says, "But we do it for an eternal prize." That's what we're in it for. Yahweh Shai is going to place those crowns on our heads, Lord willing, if we all endure until the end. He's not going to give you that crown, when you step down under, because in your mind, this was conditional. Like a woman that, she gets into a relationship and things go well, and then, y'all kind of fall on hard times after a certain period of time. The husband is not able to secure the lifestyle for a particular moment that you're used to. And that's when, most women, they get real fickle. I don't know if I want to stay in this marriage any longer. He lose a job or something goes left, and things don't go her way. She stops feeling comfortable. Then she just up and leaves. No, a loyal woman, a committed woman. She gonna stay loyal to the soil, man. No matter what conditions they fall up under. She gonna prosper with him. She gonna suffer with him. Everything in between. But a lot of these women today, they only in it just for what they can get out of it, and then they leave. And that's this guy, Alizé. Okay. AKA the Gorilla Peg, G-Peg. So I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadow boxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. And that's what happened to him. And that's why he no longer wants to run. Because basically the nigga lost the race already. He didn't keep himself disciplined. All right. Falling into all that money, getting all that praise, being surrounded by all these yes men. Didn't take heed to none of the rebuke, from his elders that were, or guys that were once, over him. He didn't discipline himself and fell into that rabbit hole of lasciviousness. So here we are. So he figures he got what he want out of it. He got all the knowledge. He's gonna act like, he didn't get taught by men, and that was how he, gained a lot of the understanding that he do have. So now he's gonna take it and carry it to a whole nother platform, a whole nother audience. That's probably what he's seeking to do, because he lost all credibility. All right. On this side, he's basically disqualified. So, yeah, I'm not gonna make any more videos about this dude unless the next time we see him and he's teaching something completely bugged out, like like something completely against the scriptures. If I hear something like that, brother's you already know what time it is. But outside of that, this dude, he's just going to be an afterthought, because prophecy is speaking right now. All these cities in Babylon going underwater, something's definitely going on. All this extreme weather. You got all these animals that's fleeing from the Yellowstone site. So we're definitely coming into those times, man. Fuck this guy. But learn from it, and we understand that we're to be committed. Under no circumstance are we to abandon this position. So, Lord willing, y'all were edified. I'm gonna give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and then to the next one, Shalom.